Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Presentation DNA. Now, if you didn't catch the last episode where we're talking about the importance of the single sentence summary, if you click the card up there on the top right of your screen, that will take you straight to that video. But in this video, we're going to talk about presentation SEO, and it probably doesn't mean what you think it does. Just like painting the windowsills in your house, the more time you spend in the preparation phase of your presentation, the better the finished quality is going to be. And that's what we're going to talk about today, how to prepare in depth and with a good strategy so that when you stand up, you're going to deliver an absolutely brilliant presentation. So let's just jump into my Keynote file here. And here we are at the very beginning of the presentation preparation journey. So you've got a starting point. That could be the title for a public speaking event. It could be some educational module you've got to deliver to your students. It could be a verse from the Bible if you're a preacher. That's what the presentation is going to be about. But the big question is, what information needs to go in there? How is it going to get organized? How are we going to work out what needs to be in and what doesn't? So hence my presentation SEO concept. So the first bit of the presentation is going to be the splurge phase. Now, splurging is a good old English word, and it just means to get everything out. So you could call it a brain dump if you want to, but that needs to be done comprehensively, and we're going to talk about that in detail in this video. So first of all, we splurge as much as we can. And then it's probably a bit counterintuitive, but the next thing we do is then get rid of as much as possible of what we've just splurged. But the point is, the more we splurge, the more likely it is that our best thoughts, our best concepts, our best slide designs, our best anecdotes and stories are going to be in the list that goes into the edit mode. And then in edit mode, it's getting rid of everything that doesn't move the story forward in the best possible way. So splurging and editing are working in like a symbiotic relationship. The third phase is the organize phase. So once we've decided the material that's going to stay in, then it's what's the order, what's the sequence, what are the connection points, how do I get from point to point to point so that it leads smoothly and powerfully to a final call to action or conclusion or summary or whatever the end point of your presentation needs to be. So SEO, splurge, then edit, then organize. So for the rest of this video, we're going to focus on splurging, and then we'll make a couple more videos to talk about editing and organizing that will follow. So splurging, the key here is, let me just get my pen tool up. We need to get it all out. So when we first start doing this, we're going to start coming up with all of our ideas, and we'll be thinking about the presentation and say, yeah, I want to say this, I want to say that. But almost certainly, that's going to come from what I would call the front of our brain, where our most trivial or recent or shallow thinking is. But what we really want to do is get back here to the back of our brain where our deep thoughts come from. And that's where the golden nuggets are going to lie. Now, whether it's really the front or the back, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but there are two kinds of thinking. There's our current thinking, and then there's our profound subconscious thinking, and the good stuff is often lurking in here in the deep recesses of our brain. The point here is, if we just settle for this, we're probably not going to get our best delivery on our presentation. And a lot of presentations, when you sit through them, you think, yeah, thank you very much for this, but I know all I'm hearing is your very first thoughts on the subject, and you haven't gone through a deep enough process of preparation to make this presentation a really profound experience for me. So let me clear those. Now, when it comes to getting everything out, you need to be you in doing this. Now, we can learn from other presenters, we can learn from people that we see on TED Talks and elsewhere, but you've got to be you. And again, this is it's a metaphor rather than a biological statement of fact. But we talk about people in terms of being left-brained, which means they're linear, logical, and they love structure and order. Or we talk about people being right-brained, where they're creative, chaotic, even a bit anarchic, because that's what helps them get inspired. Now, it's not better or worse, they're just different. But knowing how you lean in that regard can help you in terms of choosing how you're going to capture all of your thoughts. Now, at the very beginning of my presentation career, I was using Microsoft Word a lot. So I used to use its outline function. And I'd start off with my headings, and then subheadings, and then sub-subheadings, and then I'd start to fill in bits of text as and when I became clear on some of the things that I wanted to say. And that was great, especially if I was really, really clear what it was that I actually wanted to say. But as soon as I started to explore in my mind, or I needed to start a topic where I wasn't 100% certain at the beginning, I started to find that quite constricting. And then, quite a few years into my presenting career, I discovered mind mapping. Now, there was a program called Mind Manager, is the one that I started with, and that's become very expensive these days. And recently, I've been using something called iThoughts X, which works on Macs and iOS devices. Now, there are loads of mind mapping programs, and it doesn't really matter which one you use. But the point of mind mapping is it doesn't ask you to be organized at the beginning. It's great for capturing thoughts which then need to be organized later. And every thought can be a jumping off point, and you can come up with more and more branches to your mind map depending on what your thought process is at that time. The absolute killer feature for me of mind mapping was I could leave my ideas floating. Sometimes I knew it was important, but just didn't know how it fitted into the overall story or where it was best used in order to build towards my conclusion. And with Microsoft Word outlining, I've pretty much got to put it in this point, or that one, but I wasn't always sure where it fitted, so that gave me a bit of a problem. So mind mapping for me was incredibly liberating, but that's because I lean ever so slightly more to the right than I do to the left in terms of the way my mind works. So you decide which works best for you. Try them both. It is actually possible to start here and then export that and import it into your mind map, and your mind map can then output an outline if you want. So it's not strictly that you've got to use one or the other, but you'll probably find that one of them works better for you than the other. So do it your way, and don't feel that just because you copy somebody else's methodology, you'll get their results. Just depends how similar to them you are. Now, there's other technologies that we can use for capturing our thoughts, and it's capturing them really matters. Some ideas only exist for a very short period of time. So you've got to do something about them now and capture them some way that will make sense for you. Now, two that I use a lot. One is the Apple Notes program. So I get a lot of my best ideas in the shower for some reason. So when I'm in the shower, I've always got my phone on the edge of the sink right next to the shower door, and I'll lean out or even climb out of the shower sometimes and tap myself a quick note, because if I don't, I could lose it. Some ideas may only come to you once in your entire life, and if you don't capture it then, right in that moment, you may never have that idea ever again, and that would be a shame, wouldn't it, to lose them. The other one that I like to use quite a lot is the voice memo app. So I love photography, so when I'm out walking, my mind goes into a bit of a meditative state, and quite often I'll end up getting ideas about things that I didn't even know I was thinking about, because it's actually been chuntering away in the back of my mind. So again, just whip out my phone, go to voice memos, record it. I can always get it transcribed later, but at least it's been stored somewhere. Now, a couple of other ways we can store. These are quite handy. Index cards, you can just carry some of those in your computer bag or have it in your desk drawer, and you just write one idea per index card, and then there's a little bit of room. Then you might come up with a really pithy sentence that you want to write down. And when it comes to the organizing phase, you can start to lay them out in order. Very similar to that is Post-it notes. These are genius for something that was basically a mistake. They're so useful, aren't they? But with Post-it notes, again, you just write one idea per Post-it. And then when we get into the edit phase, we can stick those all up on a wall or a window or a whiteboard, and we can start peeling them off if we think we don't need them, and we can start unpeeling them and stick them somewhere else if we want to shift the order around. So they're a very useful technology too. So they all work in terms of storing information. You all need to do more processing on it afterwards, but the key at this stage in the Splurge is just get every single idea out. And that could be ideas about content, it could be ideas about slide design, it could be an idea for a story or a quotation or an activation. There's any kind of idea that may help your presentation be better can be stored in one of these. Try them and just find out a workflow that really works for you. Now, the last thing we need to think about as well is to keep doing it. So even when you think you've got everything, go back just in case there's more. So the traditional process is I've got an idea in my mind and I store that, let's say, in my mind map. But then I might be doing some web research, or I might be talking to somebody, and that's going to put more ideas in my mind. So then they need to go into the mind map. And then I'm going to be looking at my mind map, and that's going to trigger things in my brain, which I then need to add to a different bit of my mind map. So you want to go round and round and round this diagram, this process, as many times as you can until you get absolutely nothing, and then you're done, or almost done. Because the other thing that I'll do sometimes is I'll get as far as I can, and then I'll go and deliberately watch TV or YouTube. The basic idea there is I'm occupying the front of my brain, keeping it happy, and that lets the back of my brain, sorry, this is getting a bit clunky, isn't it? It's letting the back of my brain get busy while I'm watching TV or YouTube. And it's going to come up with ideas that I don't even know I'm thinking about. But again, they can go back into whatever capture technology I'm using. Could be that you need a night's sleep in between. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and you've got brand new ideas that just were in your head yesterday. So don't be afraid to experiment, and don't be afraid to give it time. Now, you need to come up with an equation in your head. It doesn't have to be particularly well calculated, but it's just the idea of importance versus time. So if you're going to give a quick report on the results of something that happened in the business today, probably that will be a fairly short presentation preparation. If it's just a couple of numbers, a conclusion and a suggested action, that may not take that much time. But if you're expecting to deliver a life-changing encounter with your audience because you've got some spiritual insight or some economic insight or some political insight, or it's an educational experience for them that could change their career, then you're probably going to put more time into it. So if we had importance at the top and time at the bottom, and we made a little graph here, it's probably going to go like that. So the higher the importance, the longer the time you should spend preparing. And work it through, decide for yourself how long you think it's worth putting into this presentation, then just add a little bit, but don't cut it short because you're running out of time and you're starting to panic. Allow plenty of preparation time way up front so that you can do a proper job, bearing in mind that the more thorough and in-depth your preparation is, the better your presentation will be, the more easily it will flow, the more authentic and credible it will seem. And without them being able to understand why, your audience will just be able to sense that you really have done your homework. And that's the key to success as a presenter for sure. So I hope you found that useful. Now, if you have, can I just ask you a favor? Could you go to buymeacoffee.com/Mark Buchanan, and there you can support me. And you can do that in a couple of ways. You can buy me a coffee, which is the equivalent of basically giving me £5, which helps offset the cost of the equipment and the time to make these videos. And then if you really think this is a series that is going to help you in your presentation career, you might want to think about becoming a member. You can be a silver member, which will get you tutorial videos. Each of these Presentation DNA episodes that I make, I'll also do a tutorial on how I've built one or a couple of the slides that I've used in that episode. If you're a gold member, you'll get the tutorial videos and you'll get the actual slide itself from the tutorial. And then you can use it and mess about with it, copy it, adjust it, just to give you a boost in your presentation design career. So I'm just trying to encourage people to get more enthusiastic about Apple Keynote and more adventurous in what they try and do with it. And then if none of that floats your boat, there's some extras that you can get. There's a PDF there you can download. You could even book an hour of my time to help you with your presentation if you want. So have a look at buymeacoffee.com/Mark Buchanan. So thanks for being with me on this video. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have too, and I'll see you on the next one.